Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. You're audible. Okay. Thank you. Uh, Thank you. So, although we are starting a little late, we shall make up for it. I see few participants here, about 20 of you who have joined this. My only request before we kind of roll forward, before we go ahead, is if you can switch on your cameras. Now, that is something which is a specific request, because it just enables the speaker to focus a little more, and also serves as a nudge to invite you to kind of participate in what we are trying to do over here. I would also kind of suggest that we do not keep it as a monologue, that I keep speaking and you just consume it or listen to it. Rather, I would want it to be a little more participative, and that is something which will help us in rolling and doing it little better, a little different as well. So I welcome you all to this session. I come from an institute called Institute of Rural Management here in Anand, as some of you would be familiar. So the focus is mostly on rural problems, on rural challenges, and that's why one of the topics that I have picked is going to be on rural innovation. So that's where my focus is going to be over next close to 2 hours, or slightly more than that. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. So to begin with, I would request the sharing rights, if you can allow me to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Just let me know if uh, okay. Is that okay? Okay. Wonderful. So yeah. Uh, when we are talking about rural innovation, the very construct or the very idea of rural is something which is very convoluted. When I say that, it means that rural is interpreted very, very differently. Some people would say that rural is just an administrative construct. That would mean that the very understanding of rural is something which is done for the ease of administration, so as to kind of see that when we are talking about rural, the idea of rural is coming from the fact that we are able to uh, um, uh, talk about an administrative unit which is easy to manage, administrative unit which will have its own kind of administrative setup, which is going to be more easy to administer, whether we are talking about devolution of funds, whether we are talking about devolution of functions or functionaries or any of these things. So it becomes a lot more easy to have a administrative setup, and that's why the very idea of rural. That is one kind of understanding. The second understanding that we have around rural is not having enough amenities when we are talking about rural. So an understanding of rural emerges that, well, we do not have enough kind of amenities, enough resources which are available in a particular territory or geography, and that is why it is understood as rural. So within that kind of, either it is administrative construct or whether we are talking about a resource deficit kind of territory, uh, we are looking at the prospective problem of of solving some of the critical problems through innovation. So through some kind of innovation. So I'm going to be focusing on that. But when we are talking about rural, one more understanding that comes to our mind, some of us are likely to equate rural with agriculture. How many of us do that? That when we are talking about rural, one thing that comes to our mind, or the kind of proxy to rural, is agriculture. Is that true to many of us? When we are talking about rural, one of the things that pop up in our head is agriculture. Is that true?
No, 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 it is not.
Yes,
No, it is not. So what comes to your mind when you hear rural, or how would you equate rural?
The first instance that comes to the mind is what is the employment opportunity beyond agriculture?
Okay.
Because not everybody is going to have that much amount of land, or say the stretch of land with them, so as to
Hmm.
support the family. Because as the families grow, the land is obviously inelastic, so it starts getting divided.
Hmm.
So that reduces their opportunity to earn more. So that is the reason that we have to think beyond agriculture. And when it comes to rural, uh, it's not only the agriculture but other activities also.
Okay. So when we think about rural, it is not agriculture, it is about the employment opportunities that are available. So when you talk about employment opportunities, would you say that these employment opportunities are farm based or non-farm based? What would generally come to our mind when we are talking about employment opportunities in rural? Is it going to be um, more of farm based employment opportunity, or off farm and non farm based employment opportunities?
Top of the mind, yes, farm based, but there are other opportunities also where they've been creating, or they've been trying to create more employment. Like, you have smaller shops also. Then there are some service providers also. Some of them run atta chakkis, or say some of them run uh, some kind of service centers, like repairing of tractors. All those things also can be a part of the rural employment.
Absolutely. So, yes, although the kind of a very intuitive thinking about rural comes to our head that, well, rural is agriculture. But yes, the other understanding of rural, when we are looking at rural and when we are not trying to equate it with agriculture, we are also trying to look at, okay, what are the other employment opportunities, and especially what are other forms of business opportunities which could be possibly available. And this is something which could be in the form of nano enterprises, which could be in the form of micro enterprises, setting up of shops, setting up of certain kind of service centers, and so on and so forth. Now, another kind of intuitive thinking when we are talking about rural comes to our mind of many of us start equating rural with poor. Now, the very idea of the disposable income that people will have in rural areas is something which is usually construed as okay, the disposable income is going to be low, the total employment opportunity within the rural areas is something which is going to be low, and hence our normal understanding or a very convoluted kind of understanding of when we are talking about rural comes to be that well, rural is equated with poor. Now that is something which is again untrue. These are some of the myths that some people hold around when we are talking about rural. Another understanding when we are talking from the side of the market, now all of this was more of a economic construct, or the understanding of rural when it comes to agriculture is something which is more of our understanding coming from that well, that's where we get the food from. So another understanding is that rural can be equated with acceptability of low quality. So when it comes from the side of the market, the very assumption that it is acceptable in the rural market, in the rural economy, that well, we are able to push the inferior goods or low quality product into the rural market. Now again, that is a myth. Now the very idea of rural as such has started changing. Now, when we are talking about rural, it is not agriculture alone anymore. It is not poor. It is not something which can be equated with acceptability of low quality of products and services. Now, why this has happened, why this kind of change has happened, we'll dwell into that for a moment and then come back to the idea of rural innovation. So, what should be the notion of rural now? What is the emerging notion of rural now? So if all of this is myth, it is rural is not agriculture, rural is not poor, rural is not to be equated with acceptability of low quality of products or services. So what should be the notion of rural now? What is it?
Should we say self-sufficiency?
Okay, shall we say self-sufficiency? Okay, we can say that perhaps, but well, has it matured enough to be called self-sufficient?
So, rural we can identify as a place where actually there is a potential of business, employment, and other things, but because of the basic facilities like we have in the cities and all. People are not able to establish anything like we usually do in the major cities and all. You can take example of schools, even the medical facilities, or even for small medicines and other things. They have to go very far.
Okay.
So yes, so if the rural areas are actually where if we add these things, they are not actually having all those things, because I had seen villages where they have more facilities than us. Like if electricity is not there, they have diesel generators. If it is not there, they have solar things and all.
Hmm.
But for education purpose, and they like to use very high tech gadgets. Even they have I had seen iPhones with them and all. But the only thing they discuss that they don't have those facilities which we are enjoying at cities. So the bus facilities, the medical facilities, and education, and some facilities for establishing business. Like if they want to, like I had a discussion with a entrepreneur which is running many businesses. So he told me that like he has to set up a bakery. Okay. So from where there is a place 35 kilometers away from that rural area. He has to order those things from there, and that person has told him that only he will come in around 2 days. Like he will not able to deliver the cakes every day.
Okay.
So yes, so these kind of things, like I had seen that he's earning lots of profit, and because of that people came to know about these designer cakes and all the things. But he told me that uh, if anyone has to order, they have to give me the order before 3 4 days, so that affects their profit and all.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So, so when it comes to the notion of rural, it is something wherein, as you were trying to say that, well, their aspirations are there, but when it comes to the availability of certain kind of facilities, availability of certain kind of institutions, whether they are educational, whether they are health institutions, these infrastructure and institutions are missing, or whether it comes to the linkage to
Hello,
the market.
hello, hello.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, sir, I am disturbing you. I'm
Yeah,
Dr. Ujjwala Ahe.
yeah,
I'm working as a lecturer at Government Polytechnic Sakoli.
okay,
Sakoli is the interior place of Bhandara.
yeah,
It is actually Naxalite place, rural place. Uh,
yeah,
I'm working over there. There is a government institution, polytechnic college is there,
yeah,
science college is there, senior college is there. Education facilities are there. But
okay,
what happened? Because of poverty, students
mm-hmm.
comes to being government institution, of fees are very less,
Yeah,
merely 6,000 per year. There
mm-hmm.
is no residential problem.
Okay,
But because of poverty, sometimes we find it very difficult. We have to convince the student to take the admission, because
mm-hmm.
what they prefer, they are having farm 1 acre or 2 acre. Most of the time, like Sakoli is famous for rice. Whenever there is a season of rice, our attendance decreases. If we ask students why, they says ki they have to go to the farm. They cannot manage the thing on other. They have to do the things. So poverty is the main problem that we are facing at the place of Sakoli.
Okay, right,
Some
right,
are very good, like Sarpanch or Patil, they are very well settled. But
mm-hmm.
if we categorize them, then
Yeah,
60 to 70% population are below economic condition. So
okay,
main problem we are facing is that how to convince them or to divert them from that agriculture mind to towards the this startup and all these things.
okay, okay, right, right. No, that could also be true. See, when we are talking about whether poverty, whether it is urban poverty or rural poverty, some of the characteristics which will devoid people from getting engaged in the formal education system will remain true across. So whether it is an urban poor or a rural poor would probably be looking for a household in rural area which is poor, would probably be looking for an additional hand at the farm. When it comes to a paddy sowing or a harvesting season, they will be looking for an extra hand over there, and that's why the children would not be going to the school and attending the school. When it comes to an urban poor, perhaps the same person who is, or a same urban poor household would be looking for an additional hand, perhaps at work, who works in a factory site, who works at a shop or somewhere else. So I'm looking for an additional hand over there, which remains applicable whether we are talking about rural poor or an urban poor. So that particular aspect although remains same. However, your point is very valid when we are talking about, okay, uh, uh, certain rural areas will have higher number of poor population. So whether it
Yes, sir.
is the
One data
economic
example
definition
I
of
can
poor or
give you.
otherwise. Yeah,
Sorry, sir, disturbing you. One example I give you. During the COVID, everything was online.
yeah.
Our 90% students were like from the family, ki they were having small handset mobile
Mm-hmm.
without this screen touch and all these things. Government was saying ki to take the classes online, but the students were saying ki we are not having the phone. The complete family was having only one phone. That phone was sometime with their parents, mother or uncle or something. When the exams was going on, literally we have to catch those students and we have to give our phone to them to solve the exam. This was the condition in the Sakoli. Most of the people lives very inside areas. There is no network connectivity, so they have to travel many kilometers to get the range. That time we find very difficulty to teach the student. It was challenge for us ki how to educate them online.
Right.
And whenever we used to take their oral exam, we have seen we used to ask them to put on the camera. We have seen their lives. There was no even their houses were very small, and no basic needs were there. Even plaster was not there to their room. How can we motivate those students to do the things apart from their regular things? It is the big question for us.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, so yes, some of the rural innovation that I am going to be talking about, these also include improvisation within the existing work and the existing technology. So, for instance, because you have broached it up a little earlier before we have kind of moved there, I will. I would like to share this because when we are talking about rural innovation, it does not have to be an out-of-world technology or something which has to which has to be exclusively designed for rural, but the micro improvisations that can be made to the existing technology or the existing resources that is available is also a part of rural innovation. So for instance, some of these schools or some of the teachers within the school or even the anganwadi workers, what they adopted during the time of COVID, when there was a crisis of sorts, and especially the delay in learning or learning loss that was happening, some of them started projecting or using small nano and micro projectors and putting this up in the community around the houses, around the hamlets, and around the villages. They started displaying it, and some of them started putting up classes which were done on Nukkad, which were done on the village circles. So when we are talking about rural innovation or when we are talking about a digital aid, it is not necessarily something that we have to push some of these students or some of these children from the rural household, poor household, to come up with and do it on their own. Rather, what is even more required is when we are talking about some of these institutions, like whether it is hospital or whether it is an educational institution, whether it is a school, whether it is an anganwadi, whether it is a gram panchayat, all of these have to go up to the level to start serving rural population, to start serving the underprivileged. So it could be a very micro or a nano innovation when the social distancing and other such norms were applicable. What is it that was done for accommodating maximum number of people on a street school, wherein some of these improvisations were actually done by the smaller institutions, whether they were able to use a mobile van to take it to the nukkad, to take it to the street in the villages, to try and get these students sitting over there and making up for the loss of learning. That is one part of it. Second is, of course, while you are trying to say that, well, how do we motivate them or how do we get them to kind of start working on certain kind of innovations on their own? That's a separate part of the story that we'll try and touch upon. Okay, so there's something which is, there are few things which have started changing when we talk about rural ecosystem in the country. What has started happening is it is large and it is growing steadily. Now, uh, uh, why it is growing steadily? Because there are few reasons which are coming from aid of technology. There are some changes that we have started seeing because of certain kind of schemes and policies, better governance mechanism, which has led to the ecosystem being expanding. So the rural ecosystem as such, which was large enough because of the sheer number of people who were residing in rural, it has started changing from that just number orientation, which was giving that a large size, to the change in the ecosystem because of the number of players or roles which has started emerging in rural areas. So when we start, likewise, while you were trying to say, Dr. Ujjwala, we have these institutions coming in, and when I'm saying rural institutions, these are, don't confuse it with the educational institutions. These are institutions which are around health services. These are institutions which are around livestock. These are institutions which are around market. These are institutions which are around education. So all of this is growing steadily. The growth is something which is palpable, which can be seen around length and breadth of the country. The rural economy, as such, contributed nearly half the nation's overall GDP and employs more than 350 million people. So 68% of the total workforce is there in the rural areas. So it is something which is difficult to ignore. And also, it could be costly to ignore for the market, costly to ignore for the companies, because that's where, when we have started talking about the saturation of urban market, the market which has kept the companies afloat, especially in the times of COVID and even at the time of recovery, is the rural market. So while the saturation in passenger vehicles, saturation in commercial vehicle has started happening in the urban areas, what has kept the companies afloat, whether we are talking about automobile, whether we have started talking about white goods, it is something which is there in rural areas. So that's where innovation is required when we are talking about the markets to survive, when we are talking about the disposable income for the rural households that should go up. That's where the focus should be. Now, the rural ecosystem as such has grown about over 10% per annum over last 5 years, and still has a strong headroom for growth. It is something which is just becoming unrelenting now. Unrelenting because the one, aspirations have gone up, and second, the push for disposable income in case of rural areas is something which is also going up. What has triggered this growth, or what has triggered this change? One is the continued improvement in the physical infrastructure. So I'm sure many of us will agree to this, that the physical infrastructure, whether we are talking about things like your rural infrastructure in terms of road connectivity to the state highways and the national highways, which has gone up significantly over past 5 to 10 years. Now, this is something which is the accessibility to the market, which is facilitated by the road infrastructure. Having that improved, the rural ecosystem is something which has gotten a boost, and which is likely to go ahead and kind of is facing all the right kind of tailwinds for growth. So that is one. Access to the market has also improved because of some of the things which has happened on the policy part. Other things on physical infrastructure, the continuous improvement that has started happening on the front of health infrastructure, which has started happening in the rural areas. Another promising feature when we are talking about schools, when we are talking about education, is the co-location of Anganwadi in the same premise where the primary school is located. Now the move is brilliant. The kind of setup when we are talking about co-location of Anganwadi and a primary school in a particular in the same compound. This is something which facilitates a easy transition of a child from Anganwadi, which is primarily a play school, to a formal system of education wherein we are talking about primary education, is something which gets ultra smoothened when we are talking about this particular development of physical infrastructure. So continued improvement in physical infrastructure is something which is giving a boost to the rural ecosystem. One additional feature which came out of this Bain and Company report, which I had referred to in this slide, is the increased smartphone and internet penetration. So, while at one hand we are all familiar with the increased usage of smartphone and the penetration of internet in the urban areas over past few 4 5 years or so. What has triggered this use and penetration in the rural areas is, as somebody was talking about, that the very exposure to media has gone up multiple times. The consumption of news, the consumption of media has gone up significantly over past few years, which has led to the increased penetration of smartphone and increased internet penetration. Now, one of the reasons, one of the significant reasons for this is, we will know that the data prices have gone down significantly. Now, while a rural household probably a few years back would have had only a basic voice and text only cell phone, from there we are looking at a significant change in the interest of rural household, from more than one phone and more than a basic voice only and message only phone to a smartphone which is having a big display, touch screen, and so on and so forth. Now this is something which got impacted because of the data prices. Now data prices itself has started determining that what kind of media am I consuming, what kind of news am I consuming. Now it is something which can be argumented, as many of us into academia will argument from both sides, that it has got a positive effect as well as it has got a negative effect. Now, if we were to just measure the outcomes of it, you will find that some of the most significant findings that are doing rounds over the internet in the scholarly journals, you will find that the benefit overweigh the negative consequences of media consumption, or the internet penetration in the rural areas. Now, along with that, what has started happening and what has started giving a boost in the rural ecosystem is the are the government policies. Now, government policies such as the one around Model Contract Farming Act has accelerated the growth in terms of what kind of freedom do we have in terms of selling our produce. That is something which is significantly boosting the growth, especially while we were trying to equate agriculture with rural. Now, more recently, what has started happening is another bunch of policy which has started coming around when we started talking about the farmer producer companies, the FPCs, as some of you would be familiar with. Now, this particular move of allowing companies to register as a producer company. Now, producer company as a characteristic is is something which is owned by the members. It is not something which is a investor owned firm. While we were referring to most of the companies in the traditional parlance, we were trying to refer to companies as investor owned firms. While when we were talking about a farmer producer company, it is something which is a member owned firm, member owned business. Now, this is something which is revolutionizing the agriculture. It is also revolutionizing the kind of agriculture produce and the linkage to the market that a farmer is able to get. Why? Because one of the basic characteristic. Okay, let me pose it in the form of a question. What what characterizes Indian farm holding, or what characterizes the agriculture in India? Now, this is something which is very intuitive, I know, but what characterizes it? What characterizes the land holding in villages in India? Anyone? So the land holding, if you think about it, one of the things which characterizes the land holding in the villages, in the rural areas, is it is fragmented. So fragmented and small land holding. So when we talk about, or whenever we go to the field, for something in the villages, one of the significant characteristic of land holding in rural areas is small and fragmented land holding. Now if that is the case, we can it is no brainer to predict about the agriculture produce and the agriculture outcomes as well. Now, the if the land holding is small and fragmented, then the agriculture produce is also going to be marginal and only subsistence. So that is something which is very very clear to us. Now if that were to be the case, it is not going to be profitable for a farmer to sell his or her produce to a market which is probably 15 kilometers, or which is probably poorly connected market which could be say 30 kilometers, and thereby I am trying to, yes, do biga zamin, right? So that is why I'm trying to perhaps sell my produce at the rate at which I have produced it. So it has started becoming non-profitable. So you would find that a lot of distress sale keep on happening. Why is it that a farmer will still sell his or her produce to the to a middleman at the rate of production? Because it is a distress sale, I want to realize whatever I have spent in growing this particular produce or growing this particular crop. I just want to realize that. Now, if that were to be the case and it was becoming unprofitable, now the farmer producer companies have started becoming a game changer. What it does is, and while I'm focusing, my focus is still on rural ecosystem and rural innovation. What has started happening is innovation should not only be seen in the form of a technological revolution, or it has to be solving a problem in a very very different way. What has happened because of the farmer producer companies, they have started revolutionizing the entire supply chain, the entire value chain in agriculture. So while for a small farmer who is having a land holding of about 2 biga or less than an acre, it was not profitable for me to get the best quality seeds at a price which a farmer having 100 acre of land would be getting it for. But what has started happening, because we are talking about rural innovation, it is about also innovation in the institutions. So what has started happening in case of farmer producer company, a bunch of farmers from a particular village or across the village can come together and form a farmer producer company which is going to be owned by the member farmers. Now, while I am trying to procure the raw material in bulk, while I am trying to make a bulk purchase, it makes a lot of more sense for me to go ahead and uh, talk to a supplier, talk to a vendor, and get it at a rate which is likely to be much lower than what I was supposed to be getting in the retail market. Now, similar thing is likely to happen with my produce as well. Can I try and add value to my final produce? That is, my final produce could be in the form of paddy, could be in the form of wheat, could be in the form of millets or something else. Can I try and add value to it if I was just producing it, or if my total land holding is less than an acre, or perhaps just about couple of acres? No, I cannot think of adding value to it. So my even micro nano innovations are not possible over there. But because of this innovation in the institution itself, it gives me a lot of support in terms of collecting the produce from different farmers, that is aggregating the produce, and also at the same time the FPC or the farmer producer company can take up the responsibility for our value addition. So this value addition could be in the form of just a most simplest level at which value addition could be possible, if you were to think about in the agri value chain, it is going to be on the areas of your collecting it together, and after your harvest, the next bunch of activities that can be undertaken by a farmer producer company would be on the lines of your grading and sorting. So while a middleman or somebody who is going to be there in the local market is going to be procuring the harvest at the median value. Okay, usually when the paddy or wheat is going to be coming to the market, this is the amount of waste, or this is the amount of unusable thing which comes out of it. If I were to look at the same produce and farmer producer company was to add or were to add value to it, value addition could be done in the form of grading and sorting. The next level of value addition can be thought about in terms of processing, in terms of packaging, in terms of branding, and so on and so forth. So if we were to talk about rural ecosystem today, rural ecosystem is expanding. The reason behind its expansion is your physical infrastructure, which is getting improved manifold. It is internet penetration. It is also about government policies, which has tried to focus on areas and things which can benefit the people in rural areas, whether it is rural household, whether it is a farmer. So those are some of the drivers that we know of in the rural ecosystem. So what is rural innovation then? Let's come to this part when we have kind of tried to understand the rest of the areas and aspects. It is creation and implementation of new ideas or solutions. Now, it is not only about new ideas, but also about new solutions to the existing bunch of problems. So whether we are talking about a rural household which was trapped, which was into a poverty trap because of unavailability of employment, or whether it was a farmer who was not able to get the maximum out of his land because of non-availability of any weather related information, that could be the answer to the problem. The kind of ideas or the solutions that can come up to solve those problems, it is about rural innovation. So the context remain rural. Apart from that, any particular idea or solution that is trying to solve a particular problem which is situated in rural, which is within the context of rural, that is rural innovation. So it could be on the tech side. We know some of the technological innovation that has happened in the rural areas, whether it is about farm advisories or the package of practices which comes along with which is delivered to the farmers on their cell phone, on their mobile device through an SMS, that well, what is going to be the wind speed over next 3 days. And this is something which is also about looking at maybe a very specific geographical area. So while the normal weather advisories were talking about a large area, and it was difficult to predict that when is it that the rain is going to happen over next 1 week, while the package of practices or the advisories which has started coming up nowadays in rural areas, it is something which is very, very specific to maybe 5 villages. So while the earlier information was dispersed at the district level, so in this particular district, the chances of precipitation or chances of rain is today as high as 99% or 98%. To what we are looking today in case of rural innovation is to the extent of your weather stations being installed in the vicinity of 5 villages having one small weather station. And this is something which is going to give you the information of about for 5 villages what is the predictability of a strong wind, which will help you in determining that well, harvest is something which should be done now, or something around that, the possibility of you not putting up the irrigation today because there is a possibility of rain tonight, so you can wait for it, and that's where your cost of production is going to go down, because you are not going to incur extra money on putting up water in your field because it is going to rain today. So to that level, your micro innovations which are trying to solve certain kind of problems in the rural areas, that's where we are talking about rural innovation. So we'll take a quick break. Can we take one? Okay, yeah, we can start again at 8:10. Is that okay? Yeah, yeah. Okay, shall we start? Is everyone here? Okay, wonderful. So is it okay if we also kind of engage in some sort of assignment together, work on something? Because I don't think on Google Meet you have a function of you have this feature of putting people in breakout rooms. Can we put people in breakout rooms here? It is there. Okay, so once I reach that part, I have something which I would want the participants here, faculty and both the doctoral scholars joined here to do together. So I'll pass that on, and so that you can put them in breakout rooms, and we'll be able to see what they are doing. Okay, so here is something that okay. Uh, just confirm if you are able to see my screen. Yeah. Okay. So, rural innovation, as such, we talked about it that we are looking at the problems in rural areas. So, context remains rural. However, the ideas and solution could be on the side of institution, on the side of technology, on the side of and solving some of the wicked problems, as many of us end up saying, which could be relating to health, education, livestock, agriculture, or governance, or something else. So the bunch of problems that we can think of, if the solution is something which is trying to solve a problem which is in rural context, that is a rural innovation for us. However, there are some distinctions that we'll try and see between rural innovation systems and the urban innovation system. We'll see that in few minutes from now. But there is an interesting new growth theory that has come up, which tries to suggest this. Now, many of us, when we are talking about innovation, when we are talking about entrepreneurship, we are familiar with the thought of Schumpeter. So, Schumpeter talks about innovation, talks about risk-taking ability of an individual, but at the same time, the new growth theory, which builds on the idea of Schumpeter, is something which argues that innovation and knowledge yeah, produced by innovation is the cornerstone of knowledge economy and the fundamental driver of long-term economic growth. So when we are talking about NGT is trying to position itself, or the new growth theory is trying to suggest us that the kind of the innovation is something which can determine the long-term economic growth. So, what is required is not necessarily the conventional wisdom of solving the old age problem with the old age method. That might not suit the need of the hour. But if we are talking about long term economic growth, and we are also familiar with the fact that, well, there is something which is also changing in the rural ecosystem, and it is growing. It is something which is triggered. Its growth is triggered by so many things. So the so the innovation is the solution over there. Innovation is something which will not only solve the wicked problem, but it will also lead to better outcomes for the economy. If that is the case, here is something that I wanted to draw your attention towards. The rural innovation system versus the urban innovation system. So when we are talking about rural innovation system, the innovation goal is usually towards anti-poverty and rural revitalization. We are trying to kind of give it some kind of lift. We give it some kind of push so that some people come out of at least the vicious cycle of poverty and get into the virtuous cycle of growth. Now, that's the fundamental focus when we are talking about the innovation goal in rural innovation system. So, unlike the urban innovation system, where the focus is exclusively on technology innovation, that how is it? So when we are talking about technological innovation, it is trying to make things and systems more efficient. So we would always want to increase the numerator in our bid to become more efficient. So that's the kind of innovation goal that we have in terms of urban innovation system, or the upgradation of industrial agglomeration and certain kind of upgradation of industries. So that's what is happening on the urban innovation system side. So when we are looking at the main actors in the rural innovation system, it is something which is worth spending some time on. We are not talking about innovation hubs. We are looking at collective firms. We are looking at family businesses. So, right in the very beginning, as some of you have pointed out towards that, I do not equate rural with agriculture. So if that is the case, the answer is there in collective firms, in the family businesses, in the small business, in the small, those micro and nano enterprises as well. The main actor is going to be government. Government is likely to be playing a key role, especially when it comes to the institutional side of innovation. When it comes to setting up of newer kind of organizations and institutions, that's where the role of government come into picture. It is also about rural self-governing organizations. So self-governing organizations which could be could be ranging from from a self-help group to a village organization to a cluster level federation. That's where we are when we are talking about the actor in the rural innovation system. It is also the small and medium enterprises and your micro venture capitalist. So someone who will be interested in putting up their money when we are looking at at uh, at setting up certain kind of enterprises out there. In contrast to that, you'll find that it is the innovation hubs, the government, the universities, and the research institutions and the VCs, which are the main actors in urban innovation system. So, urban innovation system, to put it in a nutshell, is characterized by what is usually referred to as a triple helix model, wherein you have the universities, you have the government, and you have the enterprises. And the triple helix model will suggest that there has to be a fine intersection and interface between these three, that is, the firms, businesses, the universities, and the government, to push up the innovation and push the knowledge frontiers. That's where we are looking at when we are talking about urban innovation system. While the rural innovation system would be many of these would be collective firms. Now, collective firms, when we are talking about collective firms, these are not owned by the investor. These are owned by the members. So for instance, the kind of example that I gave of a farmer producer company, or the kind of effort that has been put today by the government, especially on the lines of things like cooperative societies. When cooperatives are not owner managed and owner or the investor owned firms, these are owned by the members. So we are looking at collective firms which are trying to develop or go ahead with some kind of innovation, or leap ahead in some kind of innovation trajectory by coming together, by making certain kind of yeah, effort in pushing the solution and finding solution to the newer problems in the rural areas. It could be just a very simple problem of providing inputs, whether it is in the form of seeds, whether it is in the form of fertilizer, whether it is in the form of irrigation to the farmers, so that the cost of production comes down. So if that is the case, that is also an innovation which is happening. So innovation actor could be a collective organization, could be put very simply, could be in the form of a cooperative society, could be in the form of perhaps your farmer producer company. Now the basic resources almost although remain same, but we are looking at some of the intermediaries. Now these intermediaries could also be your your social purpose organizations, your social purpose organization or civil society organizations as we know them, or it could be a public agency which is trying to help you leapfrog in the innovation. Now, the environment here, as it is characterized, and I'll not spend any time on this, underdeveloped market and infrastructure, less innovation resource or less of human capital, and low mobility. While in contrast to that, you will find that the ingredients are present in the optimal mix. You have a mature infrastructure, mature market, as some of you were trying to point out earlier, that well, the institutions are there, but then you do not have some of these infrastructure, some access to it because of human capital is not adequate. So if that is the case, our focus should be on looking at the innovation environment and the basic resource that is available. Now, what is the innovation challenge then when we are talking about this? Innovation challenge would be usually around the poor education system, land and the property reform, um, uh, or it could be around governance, it could be around inclusive innovation, it could be left behind child. So, for an instance, if some of the rural innovation was to be talked about, um, some of the features which have happened, especially in terms of your public schemes or the government schemes which were to reach to the rural areas, best of the innovations have happened around social governance. So what has started taking place is something like a social audit, which was not there earlier, and because of which there was lot of spillage in the system. Although it was claimed that something has happened, something has been built, or some kind of work has progressed, but because there is a stronger focus on social audit, it is something which has enabled a reform in the reach of certain kind of schemes. So that's what we are looking at. So innovation challenge is not necessarily on the kind of problems that are present in the urban areas, in the urban setups. We are looking at mostly the problems which are going to be there in the context of rural. So when it comes to when it comes to the future industry support, it could be high value agriculture or handicraft or green manufacturing and so on and so forth. While the innovation pattern is localized urbanization, so it is within that pocket, and some of you have started saying, and we must also be having this kind of feeling that why rural can't be self-reliant. If we are looking at rural areas, can a village or a gram panchayat itself can potentially be a self-contained unit, that there is a possibility of a gram panchayat having all the resources in terms of the input, in terms of production, in terms of selling and consumption of those production, that production, and also if required, it has the bellwethers to take it out to the market, take it out to the other areas. So we are looking at the innovation pattern is usually around localized urbanization, social entrepreneurship, and mass innovation in entrepreneurship or knowledge transfer from outside. Now, this is what is the innovation pattern when we are talking about rural areas. Now, let's take a look at this model of rural innovation system. So if we are talking about what is our focus is problem situated in rural areas. As we were talking about, okay, it could be around governance, it could be around agriculture, it could be fallen behind children, it could be loss of learning, it could be anything. So if that is the case, we are talking about this model of rural innovation, which is situated on three things, which is based on three things. One is agriculture, science, and technology innovation, which can happen. The other is network and intermediary organization innovation. So, what kind of network and intermediary organization can come up and help the rural wicket problems? So, solve the rural wicket problems. The third is on institutional and management innovation. Now, that kind of innovation could be there at the level of rural institutions, ranging from your hospitals all the way up to the last body which we know in the village as Gram Panchayat. So it could be around any of these or all of these. That's what rural innovation system would mean. So it could be around, okay, you cannot ignore the largest employment generator when we are talking about rural areas, agriculture. So that stands out as a very separate thing. The other is coming from network and intermediary organization innovation. So when it comes to certain kind of organizations which are trying to make inroads in the rural areas, whether they are an aggregator of rural produce or an aggregator of rural craft, whether they are the kind of organization, that is also an innovation that is taking place, or it could be an institutional and management innovation itself. Institutions such as your farmer producer companies coming up, your SHGs coming up, your village organization coming up. So that's another level of innovation that we are looking at. Now, here is something that I would like all of us to be engaged in and doing. Here is a DIY that I have for you. Using the model of rural innovation system, what we have seen just now, identify a rural problem which could be on agriculture, which could be on the network and intermediary, which could be around institution itself. Identify a rural problem, articulate in the broader problem set that what would be the outcome if it is left unaddressed. So as we are trying to do it, let us try and identify that, well, if this problem remains unaddressed, what will happen, what will be the outcome. So the outcome could be, I'm also dropping in some hints. The outcome could be on the lines of, if this problem remains unsolved, there is going to be the challenge of food security in the country. So that is something which is on the agriculture side. Food security is going to be, the insecurity is going to be the outcome if we are not solving a problem which is relating to pest attack on the farmer produce, or if we are not able to solve another problem of irrigation for the farmers, it is going to leave us in the great problem of perhaps food insecurity, because where will the farmer find it attractive enough to produce the produce some crop. Where do you see the solution for the problem coming from? Is it the community itself? Is it the government, outside agency, social purpose organization, or somebody else? So let us take about 15 minutes to do this step 1, 2, and 3 in your do-it-yourself exercise for whatever we have discussed so far. And your own background understanding is something which is, or intuitive understanding is something which is going to come handy over here. Okay, so how do we put our participants in the breakout room? Okay, all right, we can do that. Yeah, yeah, after 15 minutes. 8:45. Yeah, 8:45. Okay. Okay, are we done with this part? Yes. Okay. So I hope you have had a chance to kind of think about it, or at least think about this particular problem, and been able to articulate, especially that if it is not something which has been addressed, what kind of outcomes will it lead to? Whether it will lead to food insecurity, whether it is something that is going to lead to more crimes, whether it is going to lead to more problems of law and order, or something else. Now, if that is the case, where is it that we are going to be looking for solutions? Whether the solution is coming from one of these areas. So, is there someone who would like to share what is it that they have worked on, or what kind of problem they have identified, and who are the actors who would be responsible for coming together and giving the solution?
Sir, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, this is Professor Diptyan Kashyap from YCC Nagpur.
Yes, Professor Dipti, go ahead.
Uh, Sir, the problem identified was, uh, nowadays many times suddenly the prices of vegetables goes up, and the reason told by the vegetable vendor is that because of the transportation or heavy rains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the strikes, because of strikes and other things, there is not a proper supply of vegetable, like it is delaying, or sometimes because of the heavy rains and unexpected things, these things get rotten before
Mm-hmm.
it was delivered to the market. Okay.
Right.
So in broader sense, this actually affects many people, like first the farmer, then second, where we as a customer, we have to purchase these things at very high cost. So and actually the farmer who had given so much of time and money for these things, they are not able to get the proper money, because there are middle, what you say, they get commission. They
Mm-hmm.
just purchase the vegetables or other things.
Yeah.
And the second important part is like that, you just take example of banana. So because of this delay of supply, because कि banana get ripen. ओके, इफ यदि राइपन स्टेट में ही उसको आप फार्मर से लेते हो, सो दे
Mm-hmm.
विल गेट एक्चुअली स्पॉइल्ड. सो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट द फ्रूट वेंडर्स दे आर यूजिंग कार्बाइड्स.
Right.
And as a healthy food, we are actually getting it. And I have there is one person, she is very close to me, and she is actually now 65 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that ma'am has habit to take to eat banana morning and evening, and then she was diagnosed with cancer, and then doctor asked her routine, and then said that most probably you have ate this kind of banana, and that too they all those bananas are selling nearby the main roads and all. So all
Mm-hmm.
these things contribute for cancer. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
same thing with the vegetables and other things, because they don't get rotten.
Yeah.
So farmers use more pesticides and other things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
especially with the cauliflower and all.
Yeah.
So the bigger impact is like we are eating slow poison.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is impact to the broader society, and the impact with the farmers are like they are demotivated for cultivating these things, because they think that there is not very much profit
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in cultivating these kind of things. Okay.
Mm.
So the solution which I think is that the common people
Mm.
plus the government and the NGOs, they, if they all work together, like first setting of the cold storage,
Okay.
At nearby like 2 3 small villages there could be a one cold storage. Then
Yeah.
second thing, proper supply chain management so that the things will not get rotten, or they will be supplied fresh to the market. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And the government will can play the role, like if government will set up this kind of supply chain, so
Mm-hmm.
there are elimination of these middle brokers and other things, so that farmers get more profit and they will get encouraged, because their thing is actually at cold storage, so there are less chances of this losses and all. And the society will get benefit, like we are getting the fresh thing, and because of the proper supply chain these things cannot be wasted, like proper time pay, proper place pay, and according to the proper demand this could be supplied to various places, because people actually farmers don't have idea that
Okay.
actually where their things are having demand.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this could be a solution, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, would setting up of cold storage, especially in the vicinity of village, vicinity of rural areas, would it be a sustainable model? Would it lead to kind of enough of produce that can be procured and enough of produce that can be stored? I was just thinking about that.
Sir, for that actually, if government educate the nearby farmers
Mm-hmm.
for different techniques, like there are different processing and storage techniques. Like we have frozen peas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we
Yeah.
have sweet corns.
Yes.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
these things, these small level processing things can be educated, and government can give subsidies so that people at at a lower level, like at small scale, for
Mm-hmm.
one village, or like in a combination of 4 5 villages, they
Okay.
can set up cold storage, and this should be run by those people only, sir. They should get educated for doing all those things, so this can actually generate employment for them too,
Mm-hmm.
apart from their farming. And then their processed food, because it is pure right from the field, they're
Mm-hmm.
getting it, so that they are processing it, and some part they are storing. So
Right.
both the things can be supplied with the proper supply chain, but government has to give some like policies and all for these things.
Okay, okay, right, right. So it is something which will take care of both the consumer side, who is, as you said, eating slow poison, consuming slow poison. It will solve the problem from the farmer side as well, who is probably making a distress sale and selling it at a price which is probably just kind of making him break even, or reaching to that amount which he has already spent in producing it. Okay, great. Anyone
Yes.
else who would like to share? Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Professor Dipti.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I want to share it.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Sir, actually, one problem, I don't know whether it is feasible or not. I have found that in villages,
Yes.
many farmers are there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the farmers are not having their own farm. What they do, they
Okay.
do the farming in others farm. Owners are different, and actually
Yeah.
workers are different. And whenever
Right.
there is a flood or anything, in natural condition, government declares
Mm-hmm.
the benefits, some benefits to them. But
Mm-hmm.
benefits are given to the owner as per the
Yes.
Sadbara.
Yes.
Whose name is on the Sadbara, he or she will get the benefit. But
Absolutely.
actually, what happened? Farming is done by the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But benefit if it is given to other, that
Right.
farmer who is the owner of that land, he is getting the money from that farmer also, and he is
Mm-hmm.
getting the money from government also. He is in double benefit. But
Mm-hmm.
the actual person who is victim of that thing
Mm-hmm.
is not getting the benefit. And because of what happening, many of the people from the rural area are diverting towards the urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
They are not willing to do the farming.
Yes. Yes.
And in the urban area, they are as they are not educated, they are not getting good job, they are doing some majduri or something else in the cities.
Mm-hmm.
So because of this, interest of the farmer is reducing day by day. But
Yes.
if the government suggests any solution that whosoever is the working in that farm, he should get the benefit of that,
Mm-hmm.
then
Okay.
that farmer will get some motivation, he'll get some backbone that yes, whether the crop will be there or not there, but we'll get the money. If
Mm-hmm.
this kind of solution is given by the government, then it will be the motivation to many farmers who will start doing their work in the village itself, and it will grow the overall farming condition.
Okay.
As India is a farmer country, and most of the farms are depending on our climate, so
Mm-hmm.
there will not be a fear that whether I will be benefited or not.
Okay, okay. So you are trying to say that, well, even if I'm not a owner of the land, then also if there is a calamity because of which the produce gets destroyed, I should
So,
also
sir,
get.
your voice is breaking. Sir, your voice is breaking.
Yes, I was trying to just rephrase it so that to as if I've gotten it correct. So you are trying to say that, well, independent or irrespective of whether I am the owner or I am non-owner of the farm, if there is a calamity, or I should also get paid.
Hello. Sir, I could not get. Your voice is breaking actually.
Okay, is it any better now? No, I think there's some disturbance. Is it any better?
No, no, no. It is still breaking.
Okay. Is it the case with everyone? Is my voice breaking? Are others also not able? Okay, okay. So perhaps there is some disturbance at your end, Dr. Ujjwala.
Maybe the problem from my side, but
Yeah.
Pritam sir's voice is clear, but your voice is not clear, sir.
Okay, okay. So perhaps there's something wrong with my system over
Pritam sir,
here.
can tell me what you are trying to tell? Say.
In fact, I was trying to ask just that whether you are trying to say that even if I am not the owner of the farm, if there is a calamity that takes
Yeah.
place, I will also be
Huh?
getting compensated.
Yes, yes. Whosoever is working in the farm, he should be the beneficiary of that scheme, not the owner, because owner is getting already money
Mm-hmm.
for that land.
Okay,
So
okay.
government should do some kind of registration ki who is going to work in that farm, and only
Okay.
that person should get the benefit of that things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this will be the motivation to that farmer that whether there will be a natural unconditional condition will be there or not, but I'll get my money.
Okay,
If
okay.
that assurity is there, then most of the people will motivate to do the farming, even
Okay.
though they are having their own land or not.
Mm-hmm. That is right. Okay, so where will you put it? So what you have thought about, I was just wondering that when we are talking about rural innovation system, will you put it there in agriculture, science and technology innovation? I don't think it is there. But will you
No.
put it here in the institutional and management innovation or in the network and intermediary organization innovation? I was just wondering where can I put it in the rural innovation system?
I think it can be a part of institutional and management innovation system where government plays an important role,
Mm-hmm.
and also the network and intermediary organization, because government cannot directly contact to the people.
Mm-hmm.
There must be some network and intermediary organization who
Mm-hmm.
can do this thing on behalf of government.
Okay, okay. So, all right. So either there or in the institutional and management innovation side,
Yeah,
can think of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, all right. So thank you. I think that is also an interesting thing which has come up because yes, the kind of general tentativeness that a grower is likely to have because he or she is not the owner of the farmland is something which is coming out very clearly, especially in the wake of the newer kind of natural calamities that have come up in the recent times over past 5 or 10 years. That is interesting. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anyone else, just one bit on the agriculture science and technology innovation side or on the institutional innovation? Is there
S-
anyone, one
so,
person who would want to?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I
Yes.
have one question regarding the proposal.
Hmm.
Like every year, actually, the grower change
Yes.
according to owner. If with both get agreed, then only
Hmm.
that person is allowed to do the farming.
Continue to
So,
grow it.
sir, how it is feasible if we like,
Hmm.
because even we means sometimes owner agrees just before the cultivation and other things,
Hmm.
the dispute and other things arise.
Hmm.
So sir, how we are this will be feasible? Like there are many cases, like I can give my means my example only. We
Hmm.
also we owe land,
Hmm.
agricultural land, and the person jisko diya tha sir, he was cheating actually.
Hmm.
He was not showing the total
Produce.
growth
Total produce. Yeah.
because we live like very far.
Hmm.
So he was just cheating about the things. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So then it was known after 2 3 years, sir.
Hmm.
Okay, so we
Hmm.
got a heavy loss, and
Yeah.
then we changed the grower. Now again, there is no guarantee. So,
Right.
sir, in this case, how we are going to implement this, like the grower who is working, because the agreement is like that always, that
Yeah.
whatever grows
Hmm.
should be divided half
Shared
and half,
between
and
the.
all the money expenses will
Yeah.
be given by the landowner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So how we are going to implement that that grower will get the benefit? So I don't think that this will actually not feasible and not in the favor of the landowner, sir, because all the money expenses will be given by the landlords only.
Right. So, well, if at all this were to be, this is something which were to be considered under the institutional and management innovation, there has to be a kind of a arrangement around either when you are trying to talk about a Rabi Kharif or a Zayed season, whether there has to be a seasonal registration of who the owner or who the grower is going to be. That is one. And second is, when even when the owner of the land is trying to or is bearing all the expense of growing, this is something which is difficult to kind of execute, because then all expenses are mine but all losses are covered from your end, from the end of the grower, because you have spent time in the field. Now this is something which will become a tricky situation to operationalize. It will be difficult to operationalize, because I as a owner will then not be interested in perhaps going ahead and giving it a consent and saying that, well, you go ahead and grow it, because if there is a natural calamity, you will get compensated but I will not get anything. So that is something, either you will have to go ahead with something like a seasonal registration of who the grower is and who the owner is, and which will require a huge technological expense as well. But once that is done, you can think of compensating even the grower and the owner as well. So owners expense on the crop production is something that can be taken out of the compensation that is going to be awarded to the grower. That's the only operational part that I can think of as of now. Otherwise, yes, it would be a logistical nightmare.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, just one more person perhaps who is going to sound it, that what is it that they have done, and then we move forward very
Hello.
quickly and close it. Yes.
Hello. I'm audible, sir.
Yes, yes, you are audible. I can hear you very
Sir,
clearly.
this is Professor Naveen Rathi from IMT College of Engineering, Greater Noida.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Basically, whatever I'm going to talk, it is related to my own village.
Okay. Yes.
Whatever problems I have been identifying in my rural area is, sir, lack of that lower living standards,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because of the lack of facilities, uh, maybe services which are to be provided by the government itself, state government at district levels and all.
Yeah.
Health is a major issue. But the
Yes.
major problem which I find,
Mm-hmm.
there are some semi-skilled workers, odd labors.
Okay. Yeah.
दिस इज
Yeah.
अ प्रॉब्लम इन आवर एंटायर कंट्री. तो आप देखते हैं सर कि मॉर्निंग में 5 बजे 6 बजे गांव से आदमी निकलता है, जिसको थोड़ा बहुत कारीगरी है, वो
Yeah.
जाके साइड पे कहीं रोड पे खड़े होते हैं
Mm-hmm.
और वहां वो काम की तलाश करते हैं।
Right.
उसको स्किल कहाँ से आया, क्योंकि वो कच्चा घर बनाते बनाते सीख गया, किसी के साथ लग करके सीख गया, एंड दे स्टार्टेड वर्किंग। तो वो अपनी डेली ब्रेड अर्निंग के लिए सुबह में निकलते हैं साइकिल्स पे, कभी कभी पैदल निकल जाते हैं गांव से 20-20 किलोमीटर, और शहर में कहीं जाके खड़े होते हैं।
Yeah.
और ये एक रूरल प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि नाउ एवरीथिंग इज बिकमिंग कमर्शलाइज्ड।
Right.
जो लैंड है वो तो इतनी जल्दी एक्वायर हो रहा है, स्पेसिफिकली नॉर्थर्न रीजन्स।
Yeah.
आई एम नॉट अवेयर अबाउट साउथ एंड ऑल, लेकिन
Mm-hmm.
नॉर्थर्न रीजन में तो इस तरह से डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है कि वहां पे फिर क्या होता है कि सर जैसे किसी को काम करना है तो वो वहां जाकर के बोलता है, जबकि गवर्नमेंट का एक रूल है कि एक फिक्स अमाउंट ऑफ जो है डेली बेसिस की उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट होती है, उसको देना चाहिए। वो आकर के
Mm-hmm.
बोलते हैं मुझे 4 लेबर चाहिए, 5 लेबर चाहिए, और उसको
Right.
मालूम ही नहीं कि इसको काम आता है नहीं आता है। वो 10
Uh-huh.
आदमी देखता है और अपने साथ बिठा करके ले जाता है।
Mm-hmm.
अब वो
Okay.
वहां जा रहा है, उसके बीच में क्या डीलिंग हुआ है, नोबडी नोज इट।
Yeah. Yeah.
अब वहां पे उसको पैसा मिल रहा है नहीं मिल रहा है वो भी इशू है।
Mm-hmm.
अब वो
Mm-hmm.
लेकर के आ गया, रात में शराब पी करके आ गया, वो घर तक भी नहीं पहुंच रहा, तो
Mm-hmm.
उसका काम भी खराब हो गया। जो
Right.
बीच में कोरिलेशन था एक कस्टमर का और एक
Mm-hmm.
लेबर का, वो भी खत्म हो गया, बिकॉज नोबडी इज देयर टू आइडेंटिफाई हु इज द
Right.
पर्सन हु हैज हायर्ड देम, फॉर हाउ मेनी
Mm-hmm.
डेज, हाउ मेनी
Right.
आवर्स ही हैज वर्क, देयर इज नो इशू ओवर देयर।
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
हमने ये जो प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई करी, तो हमें ऐसा लगता था कि जब हम निकलते थे गांव से तो हम ऐसा
Yeah.
देखते थे कि यार बहुत कुछ मुझे कुछ करना चाहिए इनके लिए।
Uh-huh.
आई
Yes.
थॉट कि इसका एक सोल्यूशन ये हो सकता है कि गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से मे बी
Hmm.
एनजीओ एंड ऑल, आई टॉक्ड विद सम एनजीओ आल्सो, बट दे आर नॉट एबल टू हेल्प देम आउट। तो
Okay. Okay.
आई थॉट तो मैं एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म क्यों ना तैयार करूं कि जहां पे
Mm-hmm.
मेरे गांव के आसपास के जितने भी लोग हैं जिनको काम आता है,
Right.
तो काम आता है, वो मेरे प्लेटफॉर्म से जुड़े और फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट, उनको मैं कोई चार्ज नहीं कर रहा।
Mm-hmm.
मैं
Mm-hmm.
जाकर के शिक्षा दूंगा कि भाई जिसको काम चाहिए वो मेरे साथ जुड़ो। मैं उनका
Mm-hmm.
आधार, किसी को मालूम ही नहीं है सर आधार कार्ड है, बहुत सारे जो चोरी करके भाग जाते हैं, फिर उनके पीछे घूमते हैं वो कस्टमर।
Right.
तो
Right. Right.
उसको हम एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म दें और
Mm-hmm.
गवर्नमेंट को ये बोला जाए कि
Mm-hmm.
गवर्नमेंट जहाँ भी कमर्शलाइज चल रही है, रियल एस्टेट की जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम चल रही हैं और
Hmm.
जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन चल रहा है आजकल, जो गडकरी साहब इतना सब पैसा लगा दे रहे हैं, वहां पे
Hmm.
इस तरह के वर्कर्स को काम दिया जाए। तो
Okay.
हमें एक तो वो ऑथेंटिकेटेड हो गया बंदा कि हाँ वो
Mm-hmm.
रजिस्टर्ड है बंदा, उसकी
Okay.
बैकग्राउंड और उसका जो पीछे का पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन है वो सब मैं एंड पे करता हूँ।
Right.
उसके बाद अब इसी तरह से मैं एक्सपेक्ट करता हूँ कि जितने भी गवर्नमेंट के प्रोजेक्ट्स चल रहे हैं,
हाँ,
गवर्नमेंट ऐसे किसी को ठेकेदार को कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को ना दे करके इस तरह के प्लेटफॉर्म से अगर वर्कर्स को लिया जाएगा तो
Okay.
उनको बेनिफिट होगा, उनके स्किल्स भी इंप्रूव होंगे और एक विन विन सिचुएशन वर्कर्स के लिए भी होगी, उसका भी एक अपलिफ्टमेंट होगा। जो एक लोअर लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड है, एटलीस्ट वो एक ऐसे लेवल पे तो आ जाए कि अपनी फैमिली को इजीली ब्रेड अर्न कर पाए।
Mm-hmm.
और बीच में कोई थर्ड पार्टी जो होती है वो 10 आदमी ले गया, 20 आदमी ले गया, वो खत्म हो जाए। और अकाउंट तो सबका खुल चुका है, जनधन योजना चल चुकी है सर, और
Right.
स्वर्ण जन की जो है ग्राम स्वरोजगार योजना है, इसको हम उसके साथ जोड़ सकते हैं। तो
बिल्कुल.
इस तरह की अगर हम कोशिश करें, क्योंकि मैं एक प्लेटफॉर्म तैयार किया है सर, और मेरे साथ लगभग जो है इस समय से 500 के करीब जो सेमी स्किल्ड वर्कर्स थे वो जुड़े हैं, और ज्यादा तो नहीं लेकिन हाँ इतना मैं कह सकता हूँ कि 10 से 20% उनकी इनकम भी इंक्रीज हुई है और लोगों को ही बेनिफिट दिखाई दे रहा है। अब वो सड़क पे ना जा करके मैं उनको प्रोवाइड करता हूँ कि हाँ भाई यहाँ पे काम चल रहा है और यहाँ 10 आदमी की जरूरत है।
Wonderful.
दिस इज व्हाट आई थॉट इज अ मेजर इशू इन टर्म्स ऑफ द रूरल एरियाज, जिनको खेती, जैसे अभी वन मैडम वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट कि रूरल एरियाज में वो किसी और के लिए काम करता है, खेती बाड़ी करता है। दिस आई हैव सीन इन बिहार, पीपल फ्रॉम बिहार कम ओवर हियर इन नॉर्दर्न साइड, जब भी एग्रीकल्चर का काम की स्टार्ट होती है या फसल कटने पे होता है, तो वहां पर भी कुछ मालूम नहीं है कहाँ जा रहा है, किसके पास जा रहा है, कितना पैसा मिलेगा। देयर इज नो फिक्स ओवर देयर, even though government has fixed the daily wages also.
Right, but it is not practiced, it is not followed.
This is not being practiced because कोई इस तरह का प्लेटफॉर्म उनको नहीं मिलता और अवेयरनेस नहीं है। पहली बात है अवेयरनेस नहीं है, तो गवर्नमेंट इतना सब कर रही है, तो इस लेवल के लोगों को अगर हम सोचें कि अपलिफ्ट कर सकते हैं तो डेफिनेटली इट विल हेल्प द लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड, और लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड अगर होगा तो हेल्दी एनवायरनमेंट रूरल में भी रहेगा।
Right.
This is what I thought to discuss.
This is very, very interesting, Professor Rathi. I think you are already there when it comes to rural innovation. If if I were to put it, I think it is something which is going to be there in network and intermediary organization innovation. Would you
Yeah.
agree to it?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yes, it is there in network and intermediary organization innovation. I think
Yes.
that's a very credible example of rural innovation, wherein uh, fragmented, alone, not having enough of
और
information
सर
asymmetry
एक चीज और,
existing.
इसमें मैं
Yeah.
उनको जो है उनके साथ औजार भी प्रोवाइड कर रहा हूँ। मैं औजार
Hmm.
जो है खरीद के रख लिए हैं, और जिसको
Right.
औजार की जरूरत, जिसको औजार नहीं है, उसको हम औजार भी प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, और
Wow.
खुद नहीं हम उससे ले ले रहे हैं। लेकिन बस
Hmm.
हमारा ऐसा है कि जान पहचान है, तो उससे जो है उसके रेंट बेसिस पे ले देते हैं,
Yeah.
वर्क कुछ नहीं देना, वो मैं बियर करने लगा।
Wonderful. This is very interesting. Very interesting.
So
Thank you
this
for
I thought
sharing
to
this. Yeah.
improve my village, sir.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing it. And
Thank you so
wish
much,
you the
sir.
very best with that. Okay. So let us move forward from there on. And what is the, so some of you have already articulated it. Better systems are required in rural areas to address problems which could be relating to agriculture, education, health, employment, livestock, and so on and so forth. You can think of a bucket of list that can be prepared, which will have, so for instance, what Professor Rathi is trying to do is around employment. It could be similarly around agriculture, as Professor Dipti was talking about, or it could be around education, it could be around health, it could be around livestock. So any of these problems are there to be solved. Because we are talking about rural context, it is important that some of this is being taken up, because they also need a better system. We are talking about rural ecosystem, but these are the things which are often neglected and not necessarily pulled up. Now, rural innovation should have some common characteristics. Now, building on what you have already kind of worked on in your DIY, is it has some common characteristics. One, around awareness. People should know that something like this exist in rural innovation system. It should be people should be aware about it. So awareness. So for instance, if my platform exists, or if my cold chain, cold storage exists, whether people are aware about it. If people are aware about it, whether there is an acceptability of it. So people are aware about, okay, there is a cold storage, or there is a platform which is kind of aggregating all those skilled and semi-skilled laborers in the village area, whether that is acceptable to people, whether there is an acceptability that, well, I am willing to give my produce to the cold storage, whether I am willing to rent my skills onto that platform. That is second. Third is whether it is affordable. What is also required for rural poor is what innovation I am trying to propose, whether that is something which is coming out to be affordable or not. Is it something which is very difficult to now affordability is not only about your money that you are going to be incurring in getting that particular usage of rural innovation. Affordability is also about the transaction cost that I have to incur, whether the produce has to be taken to a particular place which is very far off. Because of that, there is going to be a loss of 1 day of employment. Or even if that is not happening, what is the transaction cost which I will have to incur in that? Whether to avail that particular service, it is so difficult that I will have to go to 15 people to try and check with them what is happening and what is not happening. And fourth and the last A, which is important in rural innovation, is availability. Whether that is something which is available throughout, whether that is something which is available in certain seasons, whether it is something which is available to all, whether it is something which is available to select few. So that is another characteristic that we need to be familiar with. The conventional approach was top-down institutional approach. So the very conventional approach. So for instance, I can think of some innovation, but that innovation requires an institutional top-down approach, wherein somebody will have to initiate it at the bureaucracy, somebody will have to initiate it at the ministry, somewhere will have to initiate it at a particular government agency level. Now, also, there was a conventional approach towards creation of sectored and undifferentiated structure. So it is something which is undifferentiated structure. It does not make a distinction between urban and rural. It does not make a distinction between the requirements of people in two different geographical settings. That was a bit of problematic thing. Also, the undifferentiated strategies that were followed. So whether I were to participate in a government scheme or I were to participate in a rural innovation that has come up. So when I say participation in a rural innovation, it could be just a simple mere participation in the form of my willingness to register on a portal to start receiving the updates about weather advisories. What should I do when there is going to be a rainfall over next week when it is a rabi crop? What is going to happen? So whether that is there is an undifferentiated strategy, what is the cost of enrollment? What is going to happen if I were to enroll over there? Or it is a differentiated strategy. So yes, we were talking about the conventional approach. It is more of an undifferentiated strategy. And conventional approach also was imitation of urban model. Something that has worked in the urban area is going to work in the rural area. So imitation of the urban model is something which is not going to work, which is probably going to fail flop, which is not going to work because perhaps the kind of information asymmetry that exists in rural is not there in urban. So there's an information asymmetry. There's a cost to declare that I'm a poor. Yes, there's a cost to that I'm going to be declaring that I'm a poor, whether that is something which is there in case of urban areas or not. There are innovation is also possible in three directions. The diversification of local economies, diversification of local economies in the form of somebody had started it right in the very beginning when I started my session at 7:15, that well, it is mostly concentrated, employment opportunities are concentrated around farm activities. Now, the innovation that needs to take place is diversification of rural or local economies. That has to happen. So, if the local economy diversification has to happen, it has to happen in micro enterprises that are going to be around products as well as services, products that are going to be consumed in rural, services that are going to be consumed in rural. So that is what we need to be looking at when we are talking about innovation in rural areas or rural innovation. The intensification of interaction has to be between local and global context. So we are not talking about any kind of inferior good or service which needs to be provided. Rather, it should match or exceed of what is there in urban. It also needs to strengthen the relationship between the local actors towards new internal or local synergies. So there has to be better interaction. There has to be relationship has to be strengthened. So I'll give you an example. When we are talking about local strength actors, which whose relationship has to be strengthened, when it comes to some of the innovation that starts happening in the agriculture value chain, whether this is happening with the help of a farmer producer company or an enterprise which is working on agri tech, it also leads to strengthening the relationship not just between the farmer and the other farmer, but also it strengthens the relationship between actors such as those who are there in the retailing of your inputs, those who are engaged in providing services relating to your packaging, services which is relating to grading and sorting and so on. But it also brings lot of local synergies, lot of interdependence which can lead to a virtuous cycle. That is where people are getting pushed into, which is a good thing to happen out there. So innovation will largely have these three. Rural innovation will primarily have these three directions which we need to be focusing on. Innovation as such does not depend on a single aspect of improvement. Uh, neither it is spontaneous. So it is not just going to be on single aspect of improvement. When I'm thinking about bringing the semi-skilled laborers onto a particular platform, it is not just a single aspect of improvement. There are multiple aspects of improvement which are happening over there. One is perhaps they are becoming more informed about what kind of opportunities are available. Second, it is going to lead to economic well-being of the person, and thereby there are going to be several spillover effect. If the economic condition improves, it is something which is going to bring more income to the household. If that happens, what is likely to happen? Because it has brought in more income to the household, it is also going to lead to better outcomes on education, better outcomes on health. Neither it is something which is spontaneous, but it has to be a result of an organized and well designed processes. So it has to be a well designed process. It has to be an organized effort that needs to be put in. Design institutional arrangements are desirable. What is required is effort towards design institutional arrangements. Institutional arrangements could be as simple as setting up of a service center, setting up of a particular cooperative, setting up of an institution which is going to lead to better benefits of farmers in terms of inputs or in terms of their produce. Their produce is there, and then simply what this particular center is trying to do is do multiple value addition activities, right from grading of the produce to sorting of it, to packaging of it, to processing of it, to branding of it, and finally shipping it to the end customer perhaps. Now, as an academic and as researchers, we need to look for some research direction, some direction for our own research if we were to get interested into rural innovation. Here are some directions which I have kind of in recent times while trying to study some of the nano enterprises and micro enterprises and village economy for some time now. I came across some few things which we can think of studying. What is pro-rural technology? So a problem can be formulated and articulated around what is pro-rural technology, uh, what kind of governance and institutional options are available. So governance aspects or governance options, such as whether it is something which is to be controlled by a manager from outside, or it has to be controlled by people from inside, or rural community itself managing certain kind of institutions. There can be certain designs to be studied and validated. So certain kind of organizational design and form, whether it is an investor owned firm which will work there well, or whether it is going to be a member owned firm which is likely to solve problems in a better way, or it could be micro innovations and kind of nano innovations that can be seen in the light of new theory that we have talked about. And how are dynamic network construction changing with the technological advancement? So when certain kind of networks which are getting built or which are getting constructed, how do they change? So you have built a network wherein you have kind of thought about building up of a platform or an intermediary. How is it that it is going to shape up through certain kind of technological advancement? Or even if it was a dynamic network construction which was adding more and more people, but it was as such more of a physical form, how is it that it is going to change to certain kind of technological advancement? Those are some of the research direction that I picked up and I thought of sharing with you. But last 5 minutes we'll spend towards, just in case there are any questions, anything that we would want to discuss. I'll leave that for last 5 minutes towards that. Otherwise we are good to close. Anything that you would like to ask,
Hello,
probe upon, or say something? Yeah.
hello. Sir, I'm audible.
Yes, Professor. You are.
Sir, the problem which I was discussing regarding
You're not audible. I lost you. No, I'm missing out on your voice. You're not audible. Okay, all right. Yeah, all right. Not a problem. We will then, shall we close it there then? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you. I liked the interaction with all the participants. I wish you all the very best. Thank you, everyone.